You move that one for a moment.
Oh, yeah. My tractor shed has, some of them would be tractor wheels, but it's not tractor wheels. And you need to know, right on the tractor. Everybody has to take half and come there and load it off, and that off. But the regular, and he knows that part of them.
Where or how? From India. Well, I thought that, you know,
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John Burton's given out the chances for the door prizes tonight. And we have a gift certificate to Parini's, and Jude and Edwina have donated a pack of sweet potatoes they've grown, and that's going to be the other door prize. We've got 2 door prizes. We have a couple of announcements tonight. You want to stand up and do yours first?
Yeah, my name is Dan Peckle, I'm with the American Legion also, and they're going to have the dedication for the World War I Memorial on the 12th of November. It's going to be tied in with the Fuqua Memorial Service that they run on that Monday all the time. It's about 11 o'clock, and it is for a fundraiser. The American Legion was running a raffle. It's $20 a ticket, but only 33 for $1,500, but they're only issuing 350 tickets. So if anybody wants one, I have those also. Take dedications on the 12th.
Thank you, Daniel.
No, what's that opening at theater?
Cruise Day.
Cruise Day. What?
Cruise Day.
Yeah, I keep on forgetting the name.
Okay. We left off at the last meeting. Thomas Marzette did not make it up to Farmville due to the Hurricane Florence, but he did come, and Bob Flippin's going to bring up the item and show everybody. Thomas donated this picture of First National Bank, and Bob has one other thing he's going to tell us about also.
Ta-da! Look at that girl in the whites, round numbers.
You want to tell them a little history behind the whole thing?
What do you mean by where it come from?
Yeah.
Well, my understanding is when they cleaned out the building, First National Bank, this was found behind a file cabinet. And apparently something laid right there. But something leave it blowing and kind of put this little stain area kind of in it. But this was the actual architectural rendering of what the thing would look like. It was done in 1955, I think. The bank was built in 1957. So, tell me what Tom, what he did, how he came about it.
Yes.
And you did that already.
No, you can tell them how Thomas got it, how you got it.
Well, it ended up on eBay. He bought it from some miscreant, and he gave it back to us to share in dedication to his aunt, Naomi Word, for her service at the bank. And out of the Farmville Herald dumpster, when I got the stuff that they thrown away, there was an envelope in there. Bucky's handwriting on it, going, Ed, from the First National Bank, 1970. There's little mug shots of all the people who worked there at the bank. And there was one there with word on the back, a lady, I assume that was her. I gave it to Jimmy to give to him, kind of as a gift, as just a thank you for what he's done for us here tonight. So, we got it back. Hallelujah.
I'll put it in, you can come up and look at it after the meeting.
What is a convertible?
Pardon?
What's convertible? What model is it?
Looks like a Buick.
Is it you? Jimmy would know, he's the car man. And I'm proud to announce another vagabond book has come out. This is the one that will have the contributions, or does, by Kay Ashwood, the lady in Canada, and Julie Spring, another woman in Melbourne, Australia, who came forward from the book that we did, Michael and I, back in, and Willem McDonald, back in 2015. They saw that and came forward. So Kay was descended from one of those stepchildren when the vagabond was married to the woman and lived up here in Sandy Park. And she had the 2 children from her prior husband. I mean, she had all the history about her and that family. So that just brought all that to light. And I sent her an email last night, because the last 5 days I've just been using my spotty just to break time and all of them. Emailing them in Australia, because they all email me, hey, you already heard about that storm? I said, well, it's a little bit of an imposition, but we're getting there. And I just want you to know, I had my copy of Vagabond Voyager as my solace for the last 5 days without power. And I love that you guys did a great job. Kay has this, Kay's a woman from Canada. She can, she's got laser eyes, great researcher. She could do what I just simply can't, and that's read ship manifests. You cut through the chicken scratch handwriting, and sure enough, she's found how he left from here, the trip, how he went to Australia. I just figured he probably went to Norfolk, hopped a boat, and good riddance. No, he took a train to New York, got on, and because he lost all that money in that investment firm that went under. So he went up there to file a claim or whatever to check on that, catches a ship from there, the SS Colon, down to Colon, Panama, takes a train across the isthmus to the Pacific side, takes a ship from there to San Francisco, and then from there to Sydney into Melbourne. So she managed to find that and trace that. And the Carolyn Lewis is actually Caroline Louisa. Bellis was her maiden name. Ashwood was her married name. He was very wealthy, merchant or farmer in England. They had 2 children. He dies, leaves her all the money, which ends up being the money the vagabond lost here, and had the 2 children. So he has these 2 stepchildren. She is descended from one of the stepchildren, so she tells us all about the family here. And I'm just so proud she mentioned me for my contribution, and I told her last night, I emailed her, I said, Kay, thank you so much for your attribution for my work. I appreciate that. And she emailed back and said, Bob, I couldn't have done it what I did, because I'm telling you, you just did so much. She said, I couldn't have done it without what you, because we were at a loss in the family, and then we read your book, then that put it all together for us. So she came up with all this stuff about him. Julie is descended from that little tryst that the vagabond had as a teenager with Mary Butler, the Irish chambermaid. Johnny guys, you watch that chambermaid, she'll get you. She'll get you. She comes up in the family way, and like so many, whisked off to Australia to get away. He ends up in Australia, kind of sees her again, and she ends up living with his uncle, John James, down there.
And we think it's one of today.
And when Caroline left here and went back to England, she ends up living with the vagabond's father. Because he left his wife because of an indiscretion. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. So it's gotten so complicated. We have a timeline now that I have to resort to in order to keep up with it. But it's fantastic. So Julie is descended from that illegitimate son. John Butler Cooper was his name. We don't know where the Cooper name came from, but they think they just gave it to him. And he became a famous Australian historian. Oh boy. So these 2 people came from what our book is, and I emailed them back. There's no telling now who's going to come forward because of what you've done and we'll continue to make this an even bigger international effort. And they said, well, it's time for you to do another. I said, well, I don't know what to do other than transcribe all the stuff here, the speeches and things out of the newspaper, the documents of the courthouse, whatever else I can find, just make a little compendium of Vagabond and Virginia resources. That's all I can think of doing.
So the only people who, you don't have a section in this group? You just.
No, I don't. I was just standing on this chair, on the sidelines, cheering them on with this, answering any questions that they might have. It did. It really did. So it did. Just in time, power go out, and that's all. Thank you so much, sir.
This is our last meeting for this year. And when we come back in January, on January the 15th, our next meeting will be our annual show and tell meeting. So if you have an item you'd like to bring and talk about it at the show, please bring it on January the 15th next year. Now I'll turn it over to Edwina and Julian. They're going to give tonight's show.
Thank you all for coming out this evening after our weather that we've had in the last few days. As a follow-up to what Jimmy was doing last month, and he featured First National Bank and People's National Bank, and they were two Farmville banks that published or printed their own money. So I want to talk a little bit about that and the area merchant. Oh, I can't use my school teacher voice.
Sit down. No, you can't.
Okay, no. I'm hearing myself. Also want to talk about the local trade tokens that various merchants in Farmville, Prospect, Pamphlet, and Hicksburg use. From 1863 to 1935, all of the states and the territory of Puerto Rico issued national banknotes. And to be able to do that, there was a national bank charter that allowed the banks to deposit bonds with the federal government as collateral, and then they could print their money. Each bill had the bank's name, it was assigned a number, the name of the town. Bank officers signed the bills. They were all printed at the Bureau of Printing in Washington, D.C., and more than 12,000 banks actually used this across the United States and Puerto Rico. Popular denominations were 1, 2, 5, 10s, and 20s. Some 50s and 100s were printed, and only in your major metropolitan areas did they have the $100, the $500, and $1,000 bill. From 1863 to 1928, you had the large bill. And then with 1929 to 1935, the small bill. Honey, would you get the... And you can see the difference in size between the large bill and small bill. Can't you imagine your wallet full of those large bills? First National Bank was assigned a number, 5683. And as Jimmy told us last month, it opened in 1901. It stopped printing its own money in 1935, as they did all across the country. During that time, though, they printed $1,521,640 worth of national currency. They had that much security with the federal government in 10 different types and denominations. The First National Bank
1902 third charter bill. Here is a $10. And you can see 5683 is printed on each bill. Bill size, they measured about 3 inches by 7 inches. This particular bill had a blue seal on it. And these bills were printed from 1908 to 1921. Even though the dates on the back, I don't understand why they put those dates on it, but it was considered a plain back, and that was the actual print dates. Signatures, which you will see on here, are N.B. Davidson, President, and W.P. Gillum, Wilder Gillum, tobacconist, as cashier.
Edwina,
Mm-hmm.
what did they have to back the money up with? Was there X amount of gold somewhere that they
I
had to
don't
have?
know. You know, it just, when I was doing the research, it just said that the banks, you know, posted collateral with the federal government. So,
There you go.
you know, whatever it was.
I thought the blue seal meant that they were backed up by silver. My father was a numismatist, and
Mhm.
I remember that from bills that are farther on.
What about gold? Gold or red seal or? Just,
No, in the ones we have, they only have the blue seal. This is another one. Again, whoops, let's go back one, thank you. Where am I? No, here we go. Again, we have the 5683, and this is a blue seal. That's again called a plain back, very decorative plain back. And there were 10,634 sheets printed. And when I tried to find out, well, how many were on a sheet, they said there were varied from 3 to 10 to 25. So it was no way of knowing when they tell you that it's this many sheets printed. How much was that actual money that they were printing? And again, we have the signatures of W.P. Gillum and N.B. Davis. Then the 1929 series comes out, First National Bank. This is a Type 1 $10 bill, and I measured 2.6 inches by the 6.14. That you can see the smaller bill, and even had the thickness of the bill. Still bearing the number, they're now putting them down the side. There were 2,518 sheets of this printed. And when I say a Type 1 bill, the serial number ended in an A. And you'll see a Type 2 bill in a moment, and that ends with a numeral. There's no A at the end of it. Why they distinguish, I don't know. Now we have Gordon E. West, cashier, signing it, and N.B. Davidson, president, signing it. They had the $20 bill. Again, the numbers, bank numbers down the side. This was a Type 1, it ends in an A, and Gordon E. West and N.B. Davidson are signing the bill.
Is that a red seal?
Yes, that one has a red seal. Where's the red seal indicate?
It might have been gold.
Gold. Oh, okay. People's National Bank was assigned number 9222. It opened in 1908, stopped printing the money in 1935, as the others did. Printed $1,113,730 worth of national currencies in 6 different types and denominations. The People's National Bank, 1902 Blue Seal, there were 16,145 sheets printed. William McKinley is featured on it. It has the plain back, and the signatures were J.D. Bug, treasurer, and G.M. Robeson, president. And you can see their signatures there. 1902 Blue Seal 20. Oops. Again, the number, bank number, is printed. Plain back, J.D. Bug, and J.M. Robeson. People's National Bank, Type 1, again by the 1929, they're putting the bank number on the side. Type 1, it has the A. And Bug and Robeson are still signing the check, the bills. A Type 2, there's no A at the end of it, of the serial number. Same signatures on the bank. A Type 120 has the A, has the bank number, and same signatures. Any questions or comments or additional information on the Farmville National Currency?
I kind of have a question. When you say that those were signed, were they literally, they used an ink pen and signed them, or was there?
No, that was in the engraving. It had
Oh,
been
okay.
done in the engraving, yeah.
I know how they do it nowadays, but back in 1900, 1920, I didn't know
Yeah,
they had
no,
to
they was originally engraved. They did bring the bills in and signed them.
So all of these were printed in the basement of those banks?
No, they were printed in D.C. at the National Bureau of Printing. Yeah, it'd be nice to think that, ooh, boy, they had printed. Yes, ma'am?
Is there any limit, was there any limit on how many banks in one state could apply to their numbers and print?
Not that I read. And, you know, it again varied. You know, Virginia, there was a long list of them. You know, the number that had. You know,
Probably the whole other banks didn't have enough money to buy.
yeah. You know, because these were the two that we had in Farmville. And out of all those banks that Jimmy was talking about at the last program, and only two came
Do
national.
you know if any of the surrounding counties had the same process?
Appomattox had a national bank, but I've forgotten the name of it. But yeah, the surrounding counties, there were also national banks in those.
Blackstone, South Boston, lots of places. Edwina, did y'all not have one of those farmers' banknotes from back about, right about the Civil War era?
I didn't know that wasn't national currency.
No, it wasn't national currency, but that's just currency from here in a bank. I think the bank is actually in Richmond, but it had a branch here.
I don't know what all's in your collection.
Well, there's one in there, but you said you didn't want it.
Yeah, you know, because I don't know anything about those. I do know a little bit about these.
Where did you get them? I mean, where did you?
eBay, eBay.
eBay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice little chunk of change.
I think Bob, some of these I've got, Bob had, didn't you, Bob?
Not national bank currency, I didn't have any of that. No.
No, there's another gentleman that works at Longland.
Oh, yeah, Longland there.
Hey, Jim, I'll see him at the post office. He'll have a stack of stuff to mail. It's all high dollar stuff.
And it's one currently on eBay that's a gentleman in Texas is selling it. You know, it's all over, it's scattered all over the nation with various collectors.
It seems to be more 20s there right now than the 10s. The 10s have been kind of scooped up, most of the 20s is left.
What's the most you've seen one sell for?
There's one on there currently that does not sell. It just comes back over and over. They're asking $2,000 for it.
It's sitting there too.
But you know, you're talking around 253, 4, 5. $100 for him, but this one, he thinks his is really worth something. Also, since we were talking about local money, many merchants created their own money. You may have heard of the Taylor money that was in Prospect, and they had rabbit money in Pamplin. And so we've collected some of those also. And if you're into merchant trade tokens, there is a good book called Virginia Tokens by David E. Sheckham, who has done catalog tokens from all across the state of Virginia. And of course, so many small towns, general stores, created these tokens. And you know, I grew up on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and just about every little town over there had tokens. And you can see the ones that I'm going to be talking about are in Farmville, Pamplin, Hicksburg, and Prospect, just right here in this local area. The first one I want to talk about is J. Ashley Armstead. And this has printed on it, whoops, come on now, always hit the wrong button. You get a preview of the rest of the program. You see the J. Ashley Armstead, Farmville, Virginia, and then on the reverse, this is the same as 5 cents in my store. And of course, you go back to the early 1900s, 5 cents was a right nice little piece that you had. It was made of aluminum, and Armstead's was a grocery and confectionery store that opened before 1900. And in a 1902 Farmville Herald, there was this little ad that he put in there. Have just fitted up a neat dining apartment in the rear of my store. Meals furnished at all hours at reasonable prices. Armored steak and other products especially. Give us a try. And this is from the 1902 Herald that he had this ad. If you're trying to find the location, it was approximately where the old estimate was located, where Armstead's store was, as you can see on the map.
It was still there in 1926 because I saw it listed as part of the fire of 1926. And there are still Armstead family members living around here now that are kin to that J. Ashley Armstead.
Another token was Cunningham's, Farmville, Virginia, good for 5 cents in trade. It was made of brass, and the address 236 Main Street. Cunningham operated a confectionery store during the 20s, and you can see the area that it was at one time, and this is what it would look like today, where it is located there on Main Street. Old Baldwin's. Rip Burgers. Good for 5 cents at Rip Burgers. Soda, water, and cigars. Made of aluminum. He was at the corner of Main and 3rd. There you can see his ad painted on the building. Rip Burger, confectionery, restaurant, and baker. He was also had a soda fountain and dealt with the cigars and tobacco in his store.
Edwina, he left Farmville and went to Blackstone because he had a brother running a hotel there, the Rip Burger Hotel. So he left here and went there to work with his brother in Blackstone.
Oh, okay.
When that building got torn down when the street was wide.
Yes, that was gone.
All that's left is that little grassy spot there.
All right, then if we move to Prospect, we have the E.S. Taylor and Company, Prospect, Virginia, good for 50 cents in merchandise. And He issued coins in 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-cent pieces. Actual paper currency he offered in 1, 5, 10s, and 20s. And this was recalled by the federal government in 1938. The federal government said, these general stores are using this token for money. You bring in 5 dozen eggs and we give you X number of tokens. No, that's in competition with our money. No, we're not going to have that. So 1938, stop that, quit it, and they were supposed to have been recalled. But of course, you know, there were many people who have tossed in old jars and boxes and so forth, and now they've become collector's items. Taylor would allow you to use these at other stores in Prospect for half the face value. So you can take your 50 cents and go over to another store and get 25 cents worth. And then the stores would work it out.
Was that Robert Taylor's father?
Yeah, yes, I think it's Robert's father.
Bennett was the grandfather?
No,
I don't
yeah,
know.
Bennett was the grandfather, that was the great-grandfather.
Okay, E.S. Taylor, okay, yeah. Because the E.S. Taylor Company originally started as a mill over on Sulphur Spring Creek, Falling Creek, not far from our home. And then he moved into the village of Prospect, into this building, which you can see the buggies and the railroad track, and the building's still standing. It's vacant right now, but it's still standing. This is one of the currency bills, and it read on it, E.S. Taylor and Company will pay to bearer with $1 in merchandise when presented at our store at Prospect, Virginia. It's understood that this note is only redeemable in such articles as are for sale when presented. And I looked and looked at that signature, and I could not figure out what it was. Somebody's signature per somebody else. And I was trying to decide, is it a Taylor? But no, it looks like a G. It's not a Taylor. And so I could not figure out the signature.
Could have been a Gillum?
I don't really have never heard of Gillum's dealing with the Taylors that much, you know, in a business.
Bob, what do you say, Lynn?
Yeah, possible. It looks like MMG from here, but I think it keeps going a little
Yeah,
slow.
it keeps going though. Yeah, and here's another one.
Well, that looks like the same MM or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like an MJ, and then when you look at that, it almost looks like it's Gaylor.
Oh,
It's
God.
a very fancy tea or something.
Yeah, it looks like it could be Taylor.
So I'm not sure. This is a photo of Edward Samuel Taylor. And the tin, and you can see in collection, some of them have gotten torn and tattered.
Yeah, well, they show.
Yeah. Also in Prospect, the Hickses and Brizentines were operating canneries. And Brizentine Brothers Cannery was run by Edgar T., Watkins D., and Robert A. Brizentine. And it was down on Harris Creek. And they have Brizentine Brothers, Prospect, Virginia, for peeling 1 bucket tomatoes and working in a cannery. And then you could take that and present it at the store, and all that would be worked out. This framed item comes from the Brizentine family. This was put together in 1918. Notice that this little paper one was good for 2.5 cents to be presented. This one was good for 50 cents. And this was a photo they had of their cannery operation. And I came across that in the 1916 N&W Agricultural and Industrial Bulletin. They were listed along with Hicks County, and Glenn County. Now, I did find out a little bit about Hicks County. They had a token that was good for one bucket made out of aluminum. Thomas B. Hicks was a fruit producer, and he's listed again in that 1916 NW Bulletin. But also in the Virginia Token book, the editor of that book only knew of one that existed, and it had been cut in half by somebody. And that's all he knew about it. He didn't have a photo or anything of it.
So where'd you get yours?
I don't have one, you know. Yeah, I wish. I have the information, but I don't. Then we'll just step up the road a bit to Pamplin. And we have the Franklin Brothers, Incorporated, Pamplin, Virginia, good for 5 cents in trade. And this is the building that the Franklin Brothers were in. It was aluminum. They were a clothing and dry goods store, and they're listed in the 1921 Business Directory. Had denominations of 5 and 25 cents. Franklin went out of business. Same building, JWD Canada sets up business. He has a brass one. JWD Canada, Pamplin, Virginia, good for 50 cents in merchandise. This store was listed in 1929 in a directory of general stores. Then next door to Canada, we had Ligon. Very similar structured building. He was in 2 buildings at one time, this one and the one adjacent to it. Unfortunately, this one right here is in disrepair, quite a bit of disrepair. W.H. Ligon's and Sons, general merchandise. He had fancy one. He had scallops on it. Good for 50 cents in trade. Aluminum. And Ligon started in business in the 1880s as a general store and was running up into the 1970s, I believe. I know it was in the 60s. Yeah, when we were first married, they were still in business. He sold general merchandise, farm implements, and fertilizer, and had denominations of 5, 10, 25, 50 cents, and $1.
And those tokens are much cheaper than the others.
Yeah, I mean, if you go on eBay, you can find a Ligon token just about any time you want to. I don't know how many of those he made.
Where were they stamped out and made?
There were several companies across the country that made them. Philadelphia, you know, it was like if we wanted something made, we went on the internet and we sent it off to Vista Print, and they could print it out for us. You know, these stores would send them off the information, and then they would make them and send them back. Most of them are out of aluminum. There are a few brass ones. Williams and Ford, Pamplin, Virginia, good for 10 cents a month merchandise. Again, an aluminum one, 5, 10, 25 cents, and $1. In the 1920s, the Williams brothers and RH4 each operated stores. Then they went together. Just a little while, Ford decided to get out of the business, and his name was filed off the coins. And, so we're not going to reprint right now, we'll just cut his name off of it. Around Pamplin, it was called rabbit money, because quite often the hunters would bring in rabbits in exchange for the staples that they needed, and so they got that nickname. They not only were paying them for the rabbits that they would bring in, but for produce they were growing, railroad ties, you know, were cut by many farmers and hauled in to Williams and Ford, to Taylor and Prospect. You know, farmers made a lot of money by just cutting that timber, bringing it in, and then railroad tracks right beside Taylor's store, right beside Williams and Ford. They just load them up, take them off.
Back then, chickens and butter and eggs and everything.
Now, but the name to be filed off, was that a manifestation of some type of animosity? We're glad this guy's gone?
Could have been, you know, I
Really, why would you take the time?
we don't have one with the name filed off. The ones we have both names very legible.
Like the Coca-Cola bottles that were scraped off on the
Yeah.
side.
Could have been a legality there too.
Could have been. Then, you know, as the other ones started to wear out, the Williams brothers decided to print their own too. Williams Brothers pamphlet, good for 5 cents in merchandise. And this is the building that was Williams and Ford and the Williams brother. This was aluminum, but again, they got a little fancy. Let's put some sides here on it.
Is it real soft, are they bendable?
They're not bendable, but they're close to it. I mean, if you maybe were really strong, had really strong fingers, you might, they're soft. They're cheap, very lightweight.
Kind of like the money we're getting now, almost.
Yeah. Definitely felt like play money.
And in that store, he had a coal burning stove. That thing would be solid red when you go in there.
Then, between Pamplin and Prospect, if you go down Hicksburg Road, to the intersection of Hicksburg Road and Cutbank Road, you will find the William Daniel Hicks and Company. And he put them out in aluminum, 5, 10 cent, $1, and $5. And this structure was originally a tavern when the community was known as Walker's Church. And even before it was Walker's Church, it was known as Matthews, if you really want to go back in the history of the community. 18-inch thick brick walls, just layer after layer of brick. It was a stagecoach stop, tavern, and general store until 1916. Now it's a home that is in use. Legend has it that General Grant, on his way to Appomattox, stopped there, had a few drinks while his troops were camped down in Walker's Churchyard, which is just a little further down the road. And on the way to Hicksburg, at the old Price Farm, the troops had also camped there right on the Hicksburg Road. This, William Daniel Hicks and Company, Hicksburg, good for $5 in trade.
Is that one brassy or aluminum?
It's aluminum is what the book says. It looks brassy, I agree with you.
Do you have that, or is that from the book?
Well, we've got the Hicks.
I've got that.
That's
Yeah.
a nice looking.
And the Hicks family has them all.
No kidding.
Mhm.
Did they have any paper currency too?
I don't think so. It's been several years since I talked to one of the Hicks brothers, and I don't think it was any paper.
Well, $5, they didn't pay for so much, you know.
Yeah. Then in 1917, when the tavern closed, right across the road, the Hickses continued in business. They built themselves another store. J. Thomas Hicks operated this from 1917 to 1931, and then his brother Wilson took over and operated until 1969. And this is William Daniel Hicks and Company, Hicksburg, good for $1 in trade. And this one's good for 10 cents in trade.
One of the sons told me they had all of them, but they won't turn them loose.
Oh yeah, well, I can't much blame them. Family heirloom. The Hickses have been there for generations. They've got generations coming on of them. And any questions about the local tokens or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Did the government crack down on all of them at the same time?
Yeah, all at the same time. You know, it's telling them all, you know, no, you can't do it anymore. You know, you're in competition with real money.
You know they did it some still though.
Oh, yeah, you know, the general stores, you know, have always had a barter system with the local farmers. And that concludes my program.
Someone is redoing
Yes,
it.
there's a,
That's all they had, all
there's a family that's living in Madisonville area. It's bought the old hotel, the old bank, the old Terry building, and several other of these old stores that I was showing you right down in Main Street. And intend to redo them, and they'll be open for whoever the old hotel that turned about possibly turning it into a bed and breakfast. I've heard rumors about they would like for one of these breweries to come in somewhere there on Main Street. You know, it's,
That would be a big boom.
yeah, it would be, you know, but thank goodness this family, you know, has adopted Pamplin and wants to revitalize Main Street. Yeah, somebody will just adopt Prospect.
Look at the pictures.
Yes, the money and then the tokens are there if you'd like to look at.
And bank.
Yeah.
About how much do tokens sell for?
Well, like the Lincoln tokens, which you can find just about every time you go up there, you can get them for just a few dollars. One like Daniel Hicks, $50 or $60. You know, some of them get right pricey because they're just not out there. There are a lot of Burge tokens out of Appomattox, a lot of Evans tokens out of Evergreen.
Judy Liven was very some,
Living.
would that family be related to these people? You know?
I have no
Judy
idea.
is an artist.
Yeah, I don't know.
She lives in the town.
The last Ligon that I knew was Ann Ligon, married to Earl Smith, and she's passed away. She has children, but they're not in the area.
Raymond Reagan was man. Was Raymond?
I think it was Raymond.
Raymond Reagan.
Was the last one. No, Raymond was the carpenter.
Okay.
No,
Well, okay.
no,
Then you're wrong.
yeah. But Ann Ligon was the school superintendent's wife.
Dealt with him around KK of several life. But then you dealt with him all the time I was in high school.
Yeah, you know, another thing about those general
Cecil
stores.
Williams.
Yeah, Cecil Williams. They would run, you know, charge accounts, so, and the farmer, he got paid when he sold his cows, when he sold his tobacco, you know, and then he could go to the general store and sum it up.
And the interest were a whole lot higher than the banks.
Oh, yeah. The banks sometimes weren't too happy about lending to farmers.
America becoming like you
They're not part of the show.
I have orange cats, so I won't.
This is when we had just gotten, they weren't many weeks old. And they were discovering the computer and Scrabble. But as they've gotten older, they don't care if they work games anymore. Jerry?
Did everybody get a chance for the drawing?
Everybody have a raffle ticket? Anybody still need one? All right. We've got 2 prizes tonight. We're going to start with a $10 gift certificate to Perini's Pizza. This is right downtown, right across. They just opened several months ago across from J. Ferguson Gallery. So Perini's, I know, has been around. They've had a couple locations, and now they are back downtown. And since Edwina did such a great job, why don't we have her choose the ticket and read the last 3 numbers.
528.
528. We got a winner. All right, congratulations. Oh, verify, make
sure you're on it back.
Con artist here.
That
All right.
That Julian.
Yep, and then for being such a great helper, we're gonna let Julian choose the next one. We have a very sweet prize. We've got a whole box here full of fresh from the ground sweet potatoes.
That's what I want.
All right. Pick a good one.
520.
525. We got a winner back here.
All right, Alan.
All right, well, thank everybody for coming. See if I can get some calls from
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all. We'll call it a meeting tonight. Okay?
Did you say you had